Hi, and welcome back to Movies Explained, where we recap your favorite movies for you. So without further ado, let's begin. The opening scenes consist of a monologue about love between a man and a woman and how it makes one feel sad and blue. After making love, Ray is now sitting at a dining table while Ronnie is all dressed up in his army uniform when he gets a sudden urge to throw up and rushes to the restroom. Ray follows and holds him as he throws up. Lazarus, a God-fearing and retired blues musician, talks to his friend about meeting up with his wife. His friend Reverend ends up saying a prayer for him. Lazarus goes to a local cafe to meet his ex-wife, Rose. They exchange a very strained conversation about how she cheated on him to be with his brother while everyone in town talked about their private life. Rose tells him because of his nature she felt like she was growing old every second and she doesn't want to relive what her mother went through in her life. She makes it clear that she wants to live a good life and she couldn't have that with Lazarus. Lazarus tries to convince her to reconcile, but she confesses that she doesn't love him anymore and is sorry to have hurt him. When it's time for Ronnie to leave for deployment, a disturbed Ray argues with him that long distance will not work for them. Ronnie tries to reassure her and gives her a similar watch as is telling her that they beep at the same time every night and when they do, they will be thinking of each other. Ray starts crying and they kiss to say goodbye. Ronnie's friends give him a lift and as they are driving away, Ray runs after the truck asking them to wait, but they drive off. Ray is seen to experience a state of arousal. In the next scene, she is seen being intimate with another guy who sells drugs. She asks him for money and he calls her a hoe for sleeping around behind her boyfriend's back and calling him to be with her. Lazarus works as a farmer to keep himself busy. He is seen driving around in his truck when he comes across a field of roses. He looks at them bitterly and decides to drive on them, ruining the whole field. Later, Lazarus is drinking beer at a bar when a lady flirts with him and tells him that she knows he is hurting. He tells her that this has never happened and won't happen tonight either. The woman walks away and Lazarus's brother comes into the bar. The bartender tells him to keep his cool if he ends up in a confrontation. He comes and sits next to Lazarus and tells him that Rose told him about the afternoon and he has told her that they won't leave until they make peace with Lazarus. Lazarus scornfully remarks that he wouldn't help him ease his heart from guilt. His brother tries to walk away while telling him that he will always love him, but in fury, Lazarus grabs him by the collar and pins him down on a pool table. He tells him Cain slew Abel out of jealousy and he can do the same if he ever says he loves him again. Lazarus crashes the bottle in his hand and on the table and leaves. Ray is partying with her female friends and talking about how she begged Ronnie not to go for deployment. Ray ends up taking psychedelic pills with liquor. Meanwhile, Lazarus also gets wasted and crashes down bottles. He opens up his guitar case to take out his guitar and tune it, and then he starts playing and singing. Ray is raped on the ground, losing her senses. When she finally wakes up, she sees Ronnie's friend Gil. Gil offers to take her home. On the way back, he stops the car and tries to take advantage of Ray, but she laughs at him and compares her to another man. This gets Gil all riled up and he starts hitting her severely. She loses consciousness, and he thinks she is dead. He throws her out of the car on the side of the road wearing only a shirt and her underwear and drives away. The next morning, Lazarus is taking out the trash when he sees Ray crumpled on the roadside. He approaches her and sees she is severely beaten up but alive. He carries her home and lays her on the couch trying to get her to wake up, and she says Laron's name. He covers her up with a blanket and goes to town to get her some medication to help her. He also meets Laron and asks her about Ray. Laron tells Lazarus about her promiscuous nature. Lazarus asks him if he has ever beaten her up, but he denies it. He also reveals that she has got a sickness in terms of hypersexuality. When Lazarus comes back home, he finds Ray lying face planted on the ground. He gets her up and realizes that she is running a high fever. He tells her that his name is Lazarus, he is going to take care of her and means no harm when Ray tries to kiss him. Lazarus is repulsed and scared by the advance and steps back from her to see a writhing Ray calling out his name. He prepares an ice bath and submerges Ray in it to break her fever and tells her that she has put the fear of the devil in him and scared him. At night, Ray is crawling through the field calling out for Ronnie in hysteria when she is startled by Lazarus's voice. Lazarus takes a hold of her against her will and takes her back inside the house. He lays her on the couch when she holds his hand desperately to indicate that he can make a sexual advance toward her. He tells her that it is not going to happen and that she is safe with him when she starts crying. He sings her a worship song to calm her down and she falls asleep. He goes down to his basement to fetch a long chain. He ends up chasing Ray to the radiator. The next morning, Ray wakes up to find herself tied by chains. Lazarus tells her that he tied her down because, in her fits and dreams, she was running and also making advances on him. He further tells her that her fever is gone and he still has to cure her of her disease and get her away from the devil. Ray offers him to do whatever he wants to her and to set her free after that, but Lazarus denies it. She runs outside to break free and screams for help. Lazarus comes out and tells her that this won't move him and he will fix her, but she spits on his face instead. He drags her back inside the house with a chain and gives her food. Later he tends to her wounds when Ray tries to seduce him. He tells her that he is a man and he knows his sins, but she shouldn't do this. Ray tells him that he can be intimate with her, but Lazarus moves back and goes to the other room. Later, lying on her couch, Ray undergoes a spell of sexual arousal and she twists the chain around her body. The next day, Lazarus goes into town to a women's store to buy some clothes and shoes for Ray. Ray wakes up and lights a cigarette when she hears someone come at the door. It's Lincoln, a boy from the farm who came to Lazarus to get some butter beans. He keeps calling out for Lazarus and then goes inside the house. Ray takes off her shirt as soon as she sees him and they end up being intimate. Lazarus gets to his house and kicks Lincoln out. Lazarus's friend Reverend comes right behind in his car and Lazarus tells him to go away and that he doesn't want him around. Reverend tells him that he might not be related by blood, but he has always seen him as a brother, and Lazarus breaks down. Reverend asks if it has something to do with Rose. Lazarus tells him about Ray and tells him to talk to her after he questions his motives. Ray asks Reverend about heaven, and he preaches to her and eventually asks her what's her heaven. She tells him it's Ronnie. Ronnie comes back from deployment to his town and goes to the bar. He meets Gil there, who looks surprised to see him back. Gil asks why he came back and he tells him that he can't shoot at live targets and that he has severe anxiety due to which he has been sent home. Ronnie asks him about Ray's whereabouts and that he can't reach her on the phone. Gil tells him he must be around somewhere. At Lazarus, Ray gets dressed up in the clothes he brought her. He compliments her and tells her that the steaks will be ready soon. Later, Lazarus, Reverend, Ray, and Lincoln sit at the dinner table and Reverend leads the prayer. They all eat together. Ronnie and Gil go over to Ray's house to check her whereabouts, but she is nowhere to be found. Ronnie panics over it when Gil tells him that he fell in love with the wrong person who just likes to sleep around. Ronnie tells him that terrible things happened to Ray and she was abused. Gil tells him that she ruined Ronnie's life and that she cheats on him whenever he goes away. He also hints that Ray and he have been intimate too in Ronnie's absence, to which Ronnie gets furious and beats Gil. Ronnie takes the keys from Gil's pocket and drives away with his truck. At Lazarus's place, he and Ray share a drink and Lazarus raises a toast to freedom. Ray scoffs at the irony, but then Lazarus unlocks her chains and tells her she is free to live the way she wants and he can't force her to change. Ray asks him if he can do something for her. It turns out that she wants him to play for her so she can listen to him. Lazarus tells her about how Rose aborted his baby without telling him about her decision and that it haunts him. He tells her that he hears a voice in his head and he calls it Black Snake Moan and starts singing. Outside, a storm is raging when all of a sudden there is thunder and the lights start flickering. Ray gets scared and comes near Lazarus and tells him to keep singing to drown out the noise of the thunderstorm. The next morning, Lazarus takes Ray to the town and she tells him that she needs to go and get some things for herself. Lazarus is selling vegetables that he harvested, while Ray goes into a nearby store. She goes in and finds her mother labeling one of the aisles. They end up having an argument that reveals that Ray was sexually abused as a child by her mother's partner. Ray confronts her mother about it, but she dismisses her and bitterly tells her that she shouldn't have given birth to her and aborted her as her parents wanted. Ray breaks into a fit of rage and starts throwing things at her. Lazarus comes to the scene and carries Ray outside to go back to the house. He calms her down and at night they go to a bar together. Lazarus takes his guitar inside and goes up to the stage to play and sing with the band. Ray dances through the night to the music. The next morning, Lazarus wakes up to Ray's singing. She tells him that she only has the words in her mind but doesn't know the music of them. Lazarus tells her to sing and Lazarus plays the guitar for her and they bond over that. All of a sudden, Ronnie comes up from behind with a gun and hits Lazarus in the head, knocking him down. Ronnie aims the gun at Lazarus, but Lazarus uses reverse psychology on him to make him put his gun down. Ronnie gets a panic attack and Ray calms him down while Lazarus calls Reverend to come over immediately. When Ronnie is finally calm, they sit and talk. He tells Lazarus that he and Ray made big plans for their future, but because of Ray's disease, he feels helpless and feels like he can't fix her. He tells them that Ray helped him so much through his tough time. Reverend asks about Ray's spells and she explains that she gets all these thoughts in her head due to her past trauma where she can't control them, and Ronnie was the only person who helped her stop. She looks at Ronnie and tells him that they are messed up and that she has hurt him, but she only loves him and that if he wants to quit on her, she will understand. Reverend suggests that they get married. Lincoln helps Ronnie with his tie and tells him that he is his best man. Ray gets dressed up in a wedding dress, and Lazarus compliments her and hugs her, reassuring her that he will be there for her. Ray walks down the aisle, into a garden with Lazarus. As they get married, Ronnie ties a small gold chain around Ray's waist and they kiss. Later, Ronnie drives off with Ray when she senses that he is having a panic attack and calms him down while being on the verge of a spell herself. She sings to him and holds him through it as they even their breathing together. Thanks for watching. If you liked our content, then please consider liking the video and subscribing to our channel. Your support means a lot to us. We will see you in the next one.